We're going with open segmented turnings. They are similar to traditional segmented turnings, except there are gaps in between the segments. And because of that, the technique used for traditional segmented turnings do not work. So you don't need any extra special tools, nothing like that. You can use the same tools you turn a bowl with, but you do need some special jigs. And you can easily make them yourself. And I'll show you what mine look like and what they function for, and you can kind of go from that and make your own. First, let's start with theory and geometry behind the segmented turning. And if you're going to make your own designs, you'll need to know a little theory. So let me pass out some handouts here, and to help you understand, just take one and pass it around. It'll help you understand the theory behind it. I know one other person in here has made open segmented vessels, and that's Vern. I saw one that he made. He's probably made some more since then.
Only one.
Only one?
But you know, I'll do it again. This might inspire me.
Okay.
I got the jig, so that's what makes it easy.
Well, everything I'm going to tell you tonight is out of that book that you told me to buy over the internet.
That's a great book. You should,
Smith. The guy's name is Smith.
Yeah.
That demonstration you did before, it was solid segmented.
That's the solid segmented.
Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't think you covered any of this before.
None of that was going to work with open segmented bases.
Okay.
So, has everybody got one of those?
No, you're in short.
Need about 3 or 4 more if you got them. If not,
I don't got them. I got one here, but I need to look at it. Anyhow, look at diagram 1 there. It shows a 12 segment circle cut at 30 degrees, which equals 360 around, of course. And diagram 2 shows that to leave room for the gaps, you have to trim 5 degrees off of each side. Okay? Which cuts it down to 20 degrees off of each segment. Any questions so far? The diagram 3 shows the segments added to the circle. And the dark sections are the segments. You can pass this on back. Now that I'm done with it, somebody else can have that. And the one we're going to demonstrate tonight, now we're not going to demonstrate it, but the one we're going to talk about tonight is this design here. And you can make your own designs, but you need to know the principle of how to do it. You also need some index wheels, and I found out that your index pins and the things on your lathe, they're just not accurate enough. So in the book, the guy showed how to make your own index wheels, and I made a number of them. I'll pass these around. You can take a look at them. And if anybody here is real serious about it, I've got a whole brochure here of everything we're talking about tonight, and pretty much tells you how to do it. Index wheels. And what you need for supplies is 9" by 9" by 1/8" plexiglass to glue these here, to glue that paper on with. Just glue it on there, and then you can take it on to the bandsaw and cut it out. And then drill the hole in here for whatever size arbor you have. Simple enough. Two jigs you're going to need. First, you're going to need a pointer. What did I do? Here it is. And this is what I come up with. You can come up with anything that'll fasten to your lathe, and will let you turn it on there where you can see those numbers or the lines. And I just come up with this idea because it worked for me and it fits over my lathe. And I'll show you how it sets up. Actually, all you need is something to guide your index wheel. Make sure you get it in the right place. And when you got it in the right place, you can I use a clamp it until I get the piece glued on. Now, I guess the next thing is get these two extra holes in here. In here is for this here. The two holes here on my chuck. It keeps it from turning and spinning on there. Which I just leave it on there when I'm. You need a positioning jig. I'll talk about that more later on. And a cutoff slit. John asked how I cut the segments. Best way I found to do it is on the table saw. And made this here jig for mine. It fits mine. And you can move this arm whatever degree you want. And then on this side of the blade, it's best to have a wedge piece, because when you cut that little bugger off, you don't want it hitting that blade, because it's gonna take off and end up somewhere out in cyberspace. If the blade hits it, it's gone. But anyhow, a little wedge on this side of the blade lets it fall down away from the blade, and you can do multiple cuts that way. Now let's talk about wood selection. It's best to have light and dark woods. If you're going with something like this here, especially, and you can make them with a cross here or whatever kind of design you want to put in there. But this here is with the spiral effect, and that's easy enough to do. That was the one that he shows in the book, and that one there is maple and what do you call it? Purple heart. Purple heart. Some good choices are holly for the light wood. It's holly, maple, palo amarillo, poplar, birch, oak, and ash. And for the dark wood, you can use walnut, mahogany, leduc, cherry, purple heart, bubinga, cedar. Now it says to avoid cocobolo, teak, or rosewood, because I guess they do not glue up well, do they? That's what I understand. And your minimum thickness should be 3/4 of an inch. You make it bigger if you're going to make a bigger bowl, because when you turn it down, that's what you got to work with. That's the thickness of your wall on the bowl before you turn it down. That's the thickness. So that gives you plenty to work with. And one of the main things of your height of your pieces, your segments, is going to determine, you determine that when you cut it on the table saw. You just rip these on the table saw like this, and you want to make sure that you run them through a thickness planer or a drum sander and make them all the same thickness. I mean exactly. Otherwise, you're not going to get a good glue up, because they'll rock on you, and next thing you know, they're flying off the lathe. You don't get a good tight glue joint.
You using just a carpenter's glue on that?
I use Tight Bond, but any wood carpenter's glue would work. And the exact thickness, like I say, is not critical, but it's got to be consistent. They got to be the same. And they will come apart if you got a poor glue joint, and that's experience talking. You need approximately 60 inches of each color of wood you're going to use for this size of bowl. That seems like a lot, but when you go to cutting on them, it'll take all those 60 inches. You start out with your bottom piece and just glue a waste block to it, put it on here, and sure it's trued up and flat, and you can sand it, get it smooth before you start gluing things on, because it might be hard to reach down in there when you start turning. And this one here was the hardest to make, but you need something like this here. Now the main thing about this jig, the only really important thing about it is make sure you square it this way, but you want this point here to the center of your blade. You center it up right there. And that's the only thing important about that blade, that there jig. You'll be moving this quite often as you're building this out. Have you got the one where the dimension chart on dimension C chart? Yeah. Okay. See right here on this bottom, the bottom row tells you it's 4 1/4 inches across there. And you go over to the chart and look at the chart. It says segment. We're doing 12 segment bowl or vessel, and where it says 12 segments, go down to 4 1/4, and it's got a circle there, 763, and that's how long your segment's going to be, which is from here to here, from corner to corner, from here to here. And that's going to change on every layer. So if you look at the second layer, it's 4 3/4, and it's 0.853. And usually what I measure these with is just a regular digital caliper, and it works real well. It doesn't have to be exact, but you want to make, when you start cutting one of these for each layer, you want to make sure you get them all the same. So that first layer says 4 1/4 inches long. So what you do, you set this here gauge here, half that distance. So it would be, I didn't bring anything to measure. It'd be 2 1/8, right? So you move this over. You got to make sure to clear the piece. Okay. So when you get to that point, you're ready to glue these here pieces on. So you can start at I can't find that. Let's start out with one of the long marks on your index wheel. Another thing, after you cut these on the table saw, there might be some burrs on them. So I just have a piece of sandpaper handy that I run the burrs off, because the burrs will mess you up trying to glue them up, and you're not going to get good glue up. I didn't even bring it. I usually put this on. This first one's on with a brush. It's going to take longer than 5 seconds.
No, I use a glue.
Anyhow, it takes.
I got this glue that they recommended is another thing. It's high tack. It's made for putting up molding. It's high tack. and it's made by either Type Bond or Elmer's. I forget what brand it was.
Yeah.
It works fine.
I thought about going to that, but I hadn't got to it yet.
It's
fact,
very cheap, it's, you know,
I hadn't made any of these for
that's
probably
awesome.
3 or 4 months. So I haven't looked into that, but that's an idea, good idea, Vern.
Yeah. It is worth
Makes it go a little faster. This purple heart don't stick too good either. Anyway, once you get the first row on, you just back this out and start the second row. And you got your workshop, doesn't it? Anyhow, these are important. You only got 2 eyes, and if you lose one, you put one out, you're down to 50%. And also a face shield. Like I said, I've had one come apart on me, and those little pieces fly everywhere. And there's lots of jagged edges, as you can see on this here glue up. So you don't want to shut the lathe off and try to stop it with your hand. Not good. And don't want to put your fingers inside, of course, but if you're sanding, you don't want to sand. You want to sand power sand. You don't want to hold any sandpaper up there. You know, just think of this like as a cheese grater. You know, a 2 horsepower motor behind it. Tear up a piece of sandpaper, plus your fingers. And one thing good about it, during hollowing, you don't have to blow the chips out because they fly out through these holes. That's what. Don't forget to sign your work. Finish it, sand it. Any questions so far? I'm about done, folks. I mean,
How about when you attach the top to a bill? Is there anything special you do to the top?
well, you got to make sure that layer is flat.
Flat, yeah.
And sometimes what I'll do is take a piece of sandpaper on a big block of wood while the lathe's turning and flatten it out.
You might have to do that halfway up your glue up too.
Yeah,
They
make
start to
because
get
they do
You
get
can take
cockeyed
a board
on
and
there.
use some sandpaper to it.
Just check it
Of
out.
course, then you gotta let it dry.
Yeah.
What about
Then you
chips?
Pass that around.
Straighten it out.
What about the empty spaces? Do you have chips coming off of there from your tool? The chipping side, the side of it will chip off.
None of the wood that I've turned so far is chipped off. And I've turned some cedar there. Cedar chipped pretty easy.
You have to go back and clean out with a file in between all the little gaps to get all the glue
I
out.
haven't had to yet.
Gotta be careful how much glue you put on.
I'll pass some of these around. Like I say, if you just put the glue on a little bit on the edge, because that's all, you can see how much it's holding. Just that little bit right there.
JPR, what speed do you start out with?
800, about 800, 900.